Hi guys, welcome to this upload for you guys today. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. If you are new around here, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you'll be notified anytime when I do any videos right here on Wrestling Fan Open Mic Night. Now I want to actually announce I've now hit 50 of you guys hitting that subscribe button. I'm honoured, I'm blessed for you guys to hear my wrestling passion. Now, I want to actually talk about something that really caught my eye earlier on in the week, but obviously being busy with other commitments, I couldn't actually give you my honest opinion towards it. Now, there's been reports going around. I take it as a pinch of salt, but there's been reports about it. Now the likes of TNA not letting their wrestlers working for LFW up in, lo and behold, Canada. Now, that promotion I really wanted to get into, but obviously I've been really busy, obviously, and I've got to keep up with times and so on. Sometimes it can conjunction with a lot of things in my life at the moment, and I've not actually gave them a look yet. But I've actually seen what they've been doing by clips, what I've seen on TikTok, and I want to say this: it looks a phenomenal company. Now, with them, TNA have now stopped them using them as a stepping stone for sort of where you're going to see certain wrestling companies all collide as one because of Scott D'Amore booking the shows. Then there's CAW. This is TNA. Keep in mind that CAW is the enemy. I'm taking this a pinch of salt, but if this was genuine, I personally feel that's hard done by because I feel like WWE keep pulling those strings towards that working relationship that has been put in place for like the last 2 years now. I'm just waiting for them to pull the trigger towards TNA, but being bought up by WWE. I'm just waiting for that moment in time. Like majority of the wrestling community is, and I feel like that is kind of harsh because I feel like TNA have now got too much big for their own boots. What I mean by that is, I feel like, how to put it in a nicer way, I feel like they've literally had WWE take them under their wing. Now they've got a massive ego. And that's the problem where it lies. I feel like they had a massive ego back in the day when the likes of Hulk Hogan and all that lot was running rampant in that company, and it felt like it had done by that company. It's still around, still today in 2025. A lot of fans are saying this company's going to die way back in the day, and it still ran its course. And I feel like when I look at the bigger picture, what they actually have to offer this day and age, I feel like it's just another feed towards WWE. To make their, how to put it, their talent at the time when they first took over as a working relationship, for them to be a feeder to be their champions. If they couldn't put a belt around a certain wrestler that was in NXT, they literally went to the likes of TNA and put a belt around that. As it stands, far as I can remember, it still stands that way, and that's how I feel about it. And I feel like that's hard by done by. Then you look at the way WWE bought out AAA. I see them recently putting Dominic Mysterio as their main poster boy. As their champion yet again. WWE's reaping the benefit of it. And I feel like that's hard done by, even though they bought them out. And I feel like with WWE, they literally got a lot of wrestlers that they don't know what to do with them, so they put them as producers, such as Pete Dunne, as an example of that going forward. So I literally look at the way this has all come out, and I feel like that's pretty hard done by Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore was done a fantastic job when he was in TNA or Impact Wrestling, whatever you want to class it as. Then he's built out this company, and it's been putting stellar matches. I've been told by numerous of people I need to check it out. Every time I want to check it out, I've got other things on, and it's major issue with me. I feel like by the clips alone, I feel like it's really underappreciated for what it is, and that's what I love about all wrestling. And when it's getting overlooked by certain companies, I feel like that's harsh because you got to think logically. You're like, what made TNA think that AEW is the enemy? The only way I feel like it is WWE controlling those strings. A lot of things since they're unbreakable. I think it was pay per view over WrestleMania weekend that a lot of things that WWE have put in place with this partnership, like no blood in certain matches. You know, WWE's had that for numerous of years now, so we know full well WWE's pulling the strings. To keep this working relationship. It's like, oh, I'm your big brother. I'll show you what to do and all this lot until they stab them in the back, until they buy him out. And that's how I feel it's gonna go. But then when you think about the working relationships that AEW have, New Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL, um, RevPro here in the United Kingdom, they're doing the working relationships really, really well to give those hot-bedded talent to get noticed. That's why I look at the way recently we've got the likes of MJF appearing on MLW, to speak to Hammerstone and talk about Destiny and all that lot. And I personally feel what's on the cards to capitalize where we've talked about a big show on, how to put it, if AEW the way they can do, shuffle the pack with their pay per views like they've done in this past year in 2025, so the UK could actually have their own pay per view. I feel like they should technically, how to put it, when let's just say Royal Rumble season or WrestleMania season in 2027, have Forbidden Door then and make it a big, massive thing. I was hoping this sort of working relationship when AEW was working with the likes of Impact Wrestling back in the day, and it benefited them because I felt like it benefited them than a lot of people think. Because the way Kenny Omega went over there, yes, it could have been a lot better, but I think certain superstars could not be used to the point. As soon as that sort of deal sort of phased away, then WWE jumps on the bandwagon and we can do it 10 times better. But you've not. You've only used the people that have been viral through the internet. You got the likes of Jordan Grace under your wing. You got the likes of Joe Henry under your wing, technically, until his contract runs out in Impact Wrestling or TNA. He'll go to NXT. So, what I'm getting at is, I feel like there could be more doors open towards a working relationship, from different companies. And I feel like this would be working so well in AEW's favour if they work with MLW, Major League Wrestling, if I remember it stands with. Other than working with the likes of Maple Leaf Wrestling, which I've talked about with Scott D'Amore, but Scott D'Amore doesn't technically have his own grown talent, as far as I've noticed. He's been just doing sort of dream matches and feuds and so on. But it just had to put it. It looks future is bright for AEW, even more brighter than ever. If it's not going to be next year, it's going to be the year after. Even though, yes, we know WWE's been the juggernaut of professional wrestling for many years, but I feel like this is on the slow decline with the Saudi Arabia deal. And this is just me being honest with you. If you are annoyed with the product that much, switch off. Don't continue watching. because then you're not that annoyed. You're just doing it for the clicks and views. You know, I've turned off since SummerSlam, even though on my TikTok page that I talk about certain things if it comes on my FYP. You know, that's the only time I get around to watching the WWE products because other people have talked about it and so on. But when I look at the bigger picture, how much AEW is gonna survive and do really well, and I'm gonna say this point blank range to you guys that is watching this, AEW, I feel like it's bigger than WCW was. You know, it's at least one thing at the moment. I feel like AEW's not latched on to signing on former WWE guys all in one go, if you know what I mean. Like the ones did what Cody did. That's what I feel like hindered the product at first. You know, saying, oh yeah, we could have this talent, this talent. You just following what Impact Wrestling did. You followed on what WCW did. At least one thing with the likes of Tony Khan, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, even though they've staggered of signing big names towards the wrestling industry, you might want to say, they literally are captivating on the moments and far superior than WWE are, you know. So that's why I say with their working relationships, are they teasing more working relationships going forward? And I feel like they should tease more. They should bring more working relationships in. I feel like if you are covering all different styles of wrestling, from hardcore to high flying to tag team to women's wrestling and everything like that, I feel like when you look at the women's division, I feel like you should part it, other than Stardom you've already got. I feel like you should partner with the likes of WoW that I've seen a few episodes now and again. Pro Wrestling Eve, you've sort of partnered with them here in the United Kingdom, and I feel like when you look at the hardcore sort of style, obviously we've got tables and thumbtacks towards Mark Briscoe, obviously in MJF. I feel like you should be teaming with the likes of Game Changer Wrestling, you know, tease towards obviously working with them, you know. There's a list of possibilities you could actually do. When I said for many, many weeks now, AEW just needs that gap in the market to make that boom. And I feel like 2026 is going to be start of the boom because obviously the Royal Rumble not being in America, that's going to Saudi Arabia. Then that bigger boom period is going to be when WrestleMania is in Saudi Arabia. You know, and it's amazing what they actually can do and what could be coming forward to your very eyes very soon. I'm hoping it pans that way. But that's just my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts. But anyway, guys, I'm off. And obviously, thank you ever so much for you guys. The 50 of you so far have hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon. Remember to click all, and then you would be notified anytime when I do any videos for you guys on this platform. Until next time, catch you guys soon.